Greetings, booktubers, and welcome back to Grammaticus Books. Welcome back to a Bad Luck and Trouble episode of Grammaticus Books, because it has been bad luck and trouble all week long here in Graham's End, just south of the Shire. We started off the week Monday with a snowstorm that came in, a winter storm hit us, dropped temperatures into the single digits, brought snow and freezing rain. On Tuesday, within 30 minutes of each other, both my daughters called me to let me know that their windshield wiper systems on both their cars had failed. And then I came down with the flu. So that has been my week. It has been bad luck and trouble. Thankfully, it does seem to be turning up. We're on the upswing here, which is good news. But also tied in with the bad luck and trouble theme is on Friday, Amazon Prime will drop the last episode in season 2 of their Jack Reacher series, Bad Luck and Trouble, off of the 2000 novel by Lee Child. So it seemed like the perfect fortuitous congruence, I should say, of events to go ahead and do a Lee Child Jack Reacher booktube video. So here we are, Bad Luck and Trouble, the video of Lee Child and Jack Reacher. Jack Reacher is a creation of Lee Child. He's a British author, but he makes this American hero. He creates him back in 1997, and with the first novel, which is called The Killing Floor. He's still writing them. He's up to book number 28. I'm pretty certain that one came out this year in 2024 as well. And he's sold over 100 million copies of Jack Reacher, which kind of astonished me. I started reading Jack Reacher novels about probably 5 years ago, probably 6 years ago. And I started reading them in publication order. And I got up to number 16 before I tapped out. And I didn't tap out because they were bad, but they are formulaic. And after 16 of them, even though I would put a lot of months in between. I would read a Jack Reacher novel, I'd read a bunch of other stuff, and then I would come back and I was slowly working my way through. And at 16, I kind of tapped out a little bit, and it's been at least 2 years since I've read a Jack Reacher novel. But I have read Bad Luck and Trouble. It's a good one. It's the 11th in the series, and we'll go over it here a little bit. It is, of course, about Jack Reacher, the retired U.S. Army major who headed up the 110th Special Investigation Unit in the Army, which was a police unit. And he gets out and he spends his time wandering the United States on his retirement, basically as a hobo vagabond. He hitchhikes and rides Greyhound buses across America to small towns across America, tracing the lives of his favorite blues musicians of old. And that's where most of the novels take place. Bad Luck and Trouble is a bit different from the standard formula that Lee Child likes to employ. It violates that standard formula in 3 ways. And there will be spoilers, so just to let you know. And the first way it violates it is that he's not alone in investigating whatever the detective mystery is du jour. And this one, he has the help of 3 other members of his old unit who are trying to solve this mystery. So that's one way that it's different from your typical Jack Reacher novel. The other way it's different is that most of this novel, instead of taking place in small town America, which is where Lee Child likes to set his novels, it takes place in primarily in big cities, New York, Washington, D.C., Atlanta. And then the third way it differs is that the scope and the scale of the novel are much larger, much grander than your typical Jack Reacher novel, who's dealing with like a local crime boss or a corrupt politician in small town America. In Bad Luck and Trouble, they're actually tracking down an international terrorist organization that's trying to get their hands on a large number of surface-to-air missiles. So it differs quite a bit that way. It's a very good novel. If you are into Jack Reacher, you'll enjoy that novel. If you think you might like Jack Reacher, it's a good place to start. It doesn't matter where you start with them. Each novel is self-contained, and you can skip around, and it doesn't make a big difference. But he does bring in his team when he finds out via a coded message in an ATM receipt that he gets from his former master sergeant that there's an emergency. He meets with the master sergeant, and then he learns that his former team members are being killed one by one, that 3 of them are already dead. They've been tortured, beaten, and then thrown out of helicopters while they're still alive. So he gets the remainder of his team together, and at that point you know that there's just going to be a trail of bodies leading to whoever's in charge of the people who killed off his former teammates. And it's good stuff. It's definitely a guilty pleasure. I definitely place Jack Reacher into the guilty pleasure category, but they are fun to read if that's the type of novel that you like. If you want, sort of this old school detective with a bruiser who goes in and just cleans out the town of all its corruption, but does so in an intelligent manner, because Jack Reacher is not a dumb guy. He has almost like a photographic memory, and sort of along the same lines as Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes. But he has just an encyclopedic knowledge of the most mundane information, the most pedestrian information you could think of, that then comes in handy to help him solve the mysteries. In a Jack Reacher novel, to be blunt, you come for the violence, which there's plenty of, and you stay for the mystery solving. And that's why he sold 100 million books, because Lee Child knows how to write a good mystery, good police detective mystery novel. And that's why he's so successful. But that, in a nutshell, that is Bad Luck and Trouble. The Jack Reacher novels, in general, the blueprint is you have Jack Reacher, who is, if I was to describe him, I'm going to back up. First, I'm going to tell you how Lee Child himself looks at Jack Reacher. Lee Child looks at Jack Reacher as sort of the eternal, mysterious stranger, that stranger character who appears all across history and all the writings, who comes into town when there's trouble. He's this unknown stranger, and then he rights the wrongs in the town. If I was going to describe Jack Reacher, I would describe Jack Reacher as the living embodiment of Old Testament justice come to life in the avatar of a 6'5", 250-pound human being. Jack Reacher, he's not really a human being. That's not his role. That's not how Lee Child writes him. Lee Child writes him as this being, this Messiah is the wrong word, but he is the living embodiment of Old Testament justice, who's been imbued with the power of the Old Testament God and then sent into the wicked town in order to smite the wicked. And I know I'm putting this into this religious context, and I'm not trying to go all religious on you, but in my opinion, that best describes the mood and the tone of who Jack Reacher is. He's not a human being. You know that he is not going to be defeated, that he's going to exact his justice. And the fun in it is seeing how he does it and how it unfolds, and the knowledge that you have a person who's come up who is going to just absolutely, without mercy, without pity, in the style of the old Yahweh God of the Old Testament, just completely smite down all the enemies of the good people in the town and restore righteousness. And again, I know I'm framing this in this religious context, and I'm not trying to be religious, but that really is the tone of how these novels come across. He is justice manifest that comes into the town in order to right the wrongs and purge the wicked. And if that sounds enjoyable to you, along with a detective novel, then you won't be disappointed. I will say with the Jack Reacher novels, one thing that I noticed is that the endings of the novels tend to be anticlimactic, and that is certainly the case, in my opinion, with Bad Luck and Trouble as well. Lee Child, he builds attention, builds attention, builds attention. You have these conflicts that keep growing and growing, and then you get to the final antagonist, the head of whatever organization that Jack Reacher is addressing, and then Lee Child turns it down. He turns down the heat right at the end. And I think he does this on purpose, because it happens in almost all of his novels, and I've read 16 of them. And in almost all the novels, he turns down the heat right at the end, and I think he does it in order to keep it from becoming this, escalating into this James Bond type of ending in it, and keeping it on a more human and humane level, a more pedestrian level, because it certainly isn't going to be humane. If Jack Reacher is involved, there's going to be a trail of dead bodies. But that's Jack Reacher in a nutshell. If that sounds remotely interesting to you, what I would suggest is go on to Amazon Prime, get season 1 of Jack Reacher, and watch episode 1, because the Amazon Prime version of it is excellent. It is a very good representation of the novels. Lee Child has had a very strong hand in crafting how this is presented. And if you like episode 1 of season 1 of Amazon Prime's Jack Reacher, then you're going to like the novels. And that might spare you, going through and reading The Killing Floor, the 1997 first novel that came out, and figuring out, after 100 to 150 pages in, that it's not for you. Speaking of Amazon Prime, also, if all you know of Jack Reacher is the 4 Tom Cruise movies that were put out, starring Tom Cruise, who's a fantastic actor. You know, whatever you might think of him off screen, the man knows how to act and he knows how to direct movies. But if that's your knowledge of Jack Reacher, that is not Jack Reacher. He cannot pull off the role physically, and they know that in the movies, and so they write the movies a little different. The plots are and the characterization of him in those movies is slightly different, but it doesn't matter because Tom Cruise is never going to be able to pull off that role. It would be like taking Tom Cruise and then casting him in a Conan movie as Conan. I don't care what kind of camera angles he used, low angles shooting up at him, and putting however big a broadsword you put in Tom Cruise's hand, he's never going to be Conan. He's not. It doesn't matter that it says Conan up on the screen. You're not watching a Conan movie, and everybody who would go to it would know it right away. It's the same thing with Jack Reacher. He's not Jack Reacher. So if your knowledge of Jack Reacher is only the Tom Cruise movies, just wipe that out of your brain. That's not what the novels are about. They're completely different. Not completely different, but substantially different enough that you really haven't gotten a flavor for either the Amazon Prime videos, seasons that they've done, 1 and 2, or Lee Child's creation. So give it a try and check it out. Also, there was back in, I want to say 2009, Lee Child and Stephen King got together in a town hall setting, and they sat down and they had a 45-minute discussion about Jack Reacher because Stephen King is a huge fan of Lee Child and Jack Reacher. And they just talk about the character and they talk about the writing process. And it's a really good video. I'll link it down below. I encourage you to check it out. It's two giants in the field, at least in terms of book sales, they're giants, talking about the industry and just how they write and how they envision and come up with their characters and what they think of their characters. And it's a fascinating video. But that's it. It's been tough to get this one up. It's been a rough week. I'm just doing this with one take, all the mistakes in. We're not refilming it. And so I'm going to put this one up here. I will say one last thing. In one of my past videos that I did, part 2 of the movies, the top 10 sci-fi movies, Steve Donahue did a second response video. And in this response video, he threw down the gauntlet for a challenge on another top 10 sci-fi thing. I accept your challenge, sir. I accept it. I've got a busy week ahead of me. It's going to take me till the end of next week to meet that challenge, but I shall meet it. We shall enjoin on the field of battle, and may the best man win. But other than that, I am going to call it a wrap here. It's late at night. I've got to get this up, and then I got to rinse and repeat and head into work tomorrow. So this is Grammaticus saying, take care, be safe, and I'll catch you guys in the future.